This morning's reading was written by 17th century Japanese poet Doescher. Deep into autumn, and this caterpillar still not a butterfly.
Deep into autumn, the light comes at a slant. The sun came out so that I could say that line. And the air has that clarifying edge that makes everything look a little more honest. It's the season when sap slows and leaves let go, and the ground begins to hold on to what it will need for the spring, preparing for the freeze to come. And in the midst of it, we are offered this poem by Basho. Deep into autumn, and this caterpillar, still not a butterfly. I was introduced to this poem earlier this fall in a creative expression group I have had the honor of supervising on the detox unit at the hospital where I work when I am not with you all. I'm privileged to get to train one of our social work interns in the art of running groups. And the intern, Leah Cohen, is a writer and was a creative writing teacher in her first career. So she has created this beautiful group where every week we look at 6 short poems written by 2 17th century Japanese poets. And every week, I was struck anew by these 3 lines. And every week I've gotten to hear different takes on this poem. And I want to share an amalgamation of the responses that are shared when we each unpack each line. Deep into autumn. It's cold, but it can be cozy, not yet winter. And this caterpillar, Can caterpillars survive this late in the season? Is it gonna die? Still not a butterfly. Still not. Maybe it will still become a butterfly. This poem captures so simply and yet so expansively the emotions of a transition, fear, anticipation, grief, hope. And I love the tenderness of that line, still not a butterfly. No shame, just a truthful timestamp. This is where we are, deep into autumn, still becoming. If you look at the order of worship this morning, at the reading and anthem and sermon titles, you'll notice that we may have come up with our own version of a poem here at First Parish. Deep into autumn, becoming, still not a butterfly. Though brief, Basho's poem invokes a powerful image of transformation, the caterpillar becoming a butterfly still. And when I first contemplated this poem, my mind remained with the image of a caterpillar deep in autumn, crawling up a tree as dark orange leaves drifted down. And it gave me the feeling of anticipation. The caterpillar is not yet a butterfly, it's still a caterpillar. But then one day, I arrived at our creative expression group right after speaking to someone about metamorphosis, the transition itself between caterpillar and butterfly. And when I read the poem that day in group, a new image emerged. What if the caterpillar was not still a caterpillar and was also not a butterfly? What if deep into autumn, a chrysalis hangs on the branch of a tree, dark orange leaves still drifting down? We're used to the glossy before and after, right? Plump caterpillar on one side, winged wonder on the other. But it's the time in the chrysalis that creates that possibility. The hope contained in the line, still not a butterfly. The chrysalis is the home of transformation, the home of becoming. So what really happens inside a chrysalis? Well, I think you'll be happy to know that when the chrysalis forms, the caterpillar inside the chrysalis is literally digesting itself, actually using its own digestive juices to break down its own body into undifferentiated cells, cells that can become anything. Not all of its body, though. There are pieces that remain intact, the breathing tubes, and the imaginal discs, which have a very important job. They are prepared, under the right circumstances, to turn into butterfly parts. Eyes, antenna, legs, of course, wings. But before they can get to any of that fun visual part of transformation, they are in the goo, in the process of becoming itself. It loses itself and becomes goo. I wonder, have you ever been goo? Are you goo right now? Yes. Good. I can think of so many moments in life that feel like goo. We leave a job, a role, a relationship. We leave a certainty that we once leaned on. A diagnosis enters the room. A child is born. A grief breaks something open. Or the world itself shifts under our feet, and truth is contested. The climate cries out, institutions fray, and suddenly the map that we used to use no longer fits, but the new map hasn't yet arrived. We're in the middle. We are, to use scientific terms, goo. If that's where you are, if you are goo, hear this clearly. You are not lost, and you are not failing. You are becoming. The trouble is, we're kind of trained to value speed and optics. We want the before and we want the after photos, not that messy in-between middle. But our spiritual lives are less about flipping a switch that banishes night and a little more about tending a flame that keeps us warm enough to stay. If anything, our spiritual journeys can be a call to us to enter the goo. So perhaps the chrysalis can offer us some lessons on how to live here in the goo, how to be patient and thoughtful about our journey. I find that the chrysalis offers a few lessons. I found 5, though you may find even more. And I invite you to take a moment to consider, what is the goo around you right now? What is the transition you find yourself in, or one that you recently experienced? And as I go through these 5 lessons, I'll pause after each one for a moment and invite you to take that moment to consider how that chrysalis lesson may apply to your goo phase. The first is breathe. A chrysalis must be aerated. Even in stillness, there's an exchange of air. The breathing tube is one of just a few parts of the caterpillar that remains intact. In a liminal season, we practice a gentler breath, longer exhales that tell our nervous systems that we're not in constant danger in the goo. And when we breathe together in worship when we sing, when we listen and sit in shared silence, we are choosing to be a breathable space for one another's becoming. First, breathe. Second, boundary. The chrysalis is a membrane. It protects that tender work. It doesn't prevent it. In liminal time, we often need some clearer yeses and kinder nos, so that this new life, this new transformation can form without so much interruption. It isn't selfishness, it's stewardship. A boundary can be an act of love for what is emerging. Second, boundary. Third, nourishment. Inside the chrysalis, nothing is wasted. The old body becomes food for the new, energy for the new. Your history, the skills you've learned, the traditions that shaped you, even your mistakes, and especially your losses, can become that raw material for what's next. To transform isn't to reject what has been, but transfigure it into what will come next. Third, nourishment. Fourth, companions. Those imaginal cells that remain in the goo, they don't work alone. They cluster and they communicate. They transform as a collaboration. And for us, that can look like intentional community. It can also be a trusted friend group, a few people who can hear your unfinished sentences without rushing to tidy them, who can sit with your grief without calling it drama or going on too long, who can celebrate a first wobbly attempt at newness without shaming the wobble. Fourth, companions. And finally, time. The chrysalis does not consult our calendars. In fact, sometimes caterpillars don't transition into their chrysalis until early winter, and then emerge in the spring. There is a pace to real becoming that's slower than our impatience, slower than productivity metrics, slower than the news cycle. Fifth and final, time. All of this is true in our personal lives. And it's also true in the life that we share. We're living through collective liminality, climate grief and uncertainty, that fraying of institutions that have both helped and harmed, threats to democracy alongside the rise of brave local solidarities. Deep into autumn, still not a butterfly. So what if congregations like ours are meant to be the chrysalis? Homes and membranes strong enough to hold the goo while imaginal possibilities gather. Franciscan priest and social activist Richard Rohr calls this threshold a sacred liminal space, a holy middle, where the old world has been left behind, but the new one hasn't yet arrived. He says this threshold is where genuine transformation happens, if we are willing to stay there long enough for the newness to begin. Religion, at its best, doesn't keep us comfortable in the way things are. It accompanies us into the threshold and helps us live there without panic. He says that religion should lead us into sacred space where deconstruction of the old normal can occur. Given our image of this chrysalis, I'd push further. Our faith should make a home of this sacred space of deconstruction and reconstruction. In Unitarian Universalism, we say that transformation centered in love is one of our core values. So let's make this a home for the old and the not yet, and the new, where we can feel safe and seen and gathered into belonging amidst the change. It is tempting to believe that home only arrives after the wings, after the transformation is visible, after the story resolves. But we know that we are constantly learning together how to find a home here in the goo. Home is the membrane that holds us during the change. It's the breath that we share when words won't come yet. It's the boundary that protects tender work. Home is the goo itself becoming sustenance. It is the hand that finds yours in the dark and does not let go. And this is the promise that we can make to one another as we are becoming. That we will not rush our becoming. We will breathe with you. We will protect the tenderness, offer nourishment, companion you, and honor the time it takes, deep into autumn. And this caterpillar, still not a butterfly yet. And even here, in that goo, there is a home. May this community be such a home. And as the music rises, receive it as a blessing over the sacred liminal space that you are living in right now. Amen.